Fitness Pro Mentor community, welcome to the podcast. Extremely excited for today because today I have 4 guests with me. It's 5 of us. It's going to be crazy, but these are 4 of the best personal trainers that I know, and I'm super excited because they're at all different levels, but all these trainers charge more than $140 per hour. They're all people who've been doing this for a long time, different levels. Some of them are instructors, some of them are business owners, some of them are prospective business owners, and we're going to talk about what defines the fitness experience for them. And I got some juicy questions, and hopefully one of them yells at one another. Who knows if they will? But I'm going to start with someone who's got a great name, Mr. Brandon Davis, because Brandon, why not? Brandon Davis, welcome to the podcast again. How you doing?
Hey, man, I'm doing great.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
I like the garage vibe, man. This is good.
It's cool. You should check out this. You like cars? Check this out.
What you got there?
Chevelle Super Sport.
Ooh. Nice. My son has a little orange Chevelle. He carries it around the house. It's great. I love it. Speaking of new dads, we got 2 actually. I just realized. We'll go Holtzman with the baby girl. Hey, sir, Mr. Erick Holtzman. How you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Man, I'm super excited to have you. You got the great podcast mic. It sounds good.
Yeah, man. Just owning this Yeti mic. Thanks for the lead on it.
Oh, yeah, 100%. So everyone's listening, Brandon Davis is of Get NeuroFit. If you're not following him or his business, check it out. Erick Holtzman, Mindful Motion LA, also follow him. Very, very cool. But on the same dad vibe, we got a double dad duty, Mr. Sam Trotta, who's got a fresh baby at home, and he's got 2 like me. Just nuts. Trotta, how you doing today, sir?
Pretty good. How are you?
Doing very good. Sam Trotta of Striation 6. So if you're not following him, you got to follow him too.
Definitely. Please follow me. I would love it if you followed me.
And last but not least, Mr. Ahmed, veteran of FPM, but also a badass trainer, very good guy, someone who's constantly pushing the envelope. Ahmed, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well, Brandon. Excited to be on with all these great trainers.
Yeah, no, this is going to be super exciting. So this is one of the first little group chats that we're doing like this. I've done a few other guys, but for a little Fitness Pro Mentors community and high-end awesome trainers, this is going to be fun. As many of you know, kind of like setting this thing off, Tom Purvis introduces this idea of the exercise experience. And I love this idea. Now, I'm going to flip it around because I'm biased. I'm going to call it the fitness experience today because, Fitness Pro Mentors for fun. But truth is, what I want to do is I want to talk about how you as professionals look at conducting a professional session and making sure the entire experience, both the results and the way you deliver yourself, provides an experience that someone wants to come back for years and years and years. So I'm going to start with my biased Mr. Canadian friend, Mr. Sam Trotta. When you think of how you're providing your fitness experience, what qualities of the things that you bring to the session are important to you?
Sure. Well, I think there's a healthy balance that needs to be struck between, being your professional but authentic self, but also trying to, through asking questions and just getting vibes from your client, provide what they actually need. For example, I'm a pretty high energy guy. I tend to talk really fast and really loud and lots of hand motions. I'm Italian. I can't help myself. But if I have someone who's, a little more low key, they speak a little slower, they seem to be a little more on the chill side, I might take myself down a half step because that might just be what they need from me. And I might have to be a little more conscious about it. But it's, giving the client what they need in order to facilitate their exercise success. And then it's really just a question in terms of creating the experience, asking questions, paying attention to what the person says, paying attention to what they don't say, to what their body might be telling you, whether or not they're conscious of it. I guess there's a lot in there, but that's kind of like high level how I try to look at it.
Yeah, man. And there's a lot to juggle because you kind of have to be a professional chameleon, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There's definitely a lot in there, but I think for me, the number one thing is to constantly remind myself every session, sometimes twice, that this is about the person in front of me and not about me. And I think in my experience, if I start from there, it tends to create a more positive a higher probability of a more positive exercise experience.
Yeah, I want to ask you on that note, because that's such an important thing. But that idea of chameleoning yourself to the individual that's in front of you and making sure that you are echoing their mannerisms, their tone, their speed, and what they like, but at the same time making sure they get the results. I'm just wondering, how do you divide that balance?
Well, I think it's, in some sense, it goes back to what I said before, where I don't chameleon them so much that I lose myself. You know,
Yeah.
like I still have to be me, because if I'm focused too much on mirroring them and trying to create that kind of comfortable situation, I lose focus on the exercise. That's no good either. So it's really about that bit of chameleoning, that bit of, you know, doing your best to anticipate what the client needs from you in terms of your professional disposition without getting too codependent about it, is more just about setting the stage and creating a situation where, to borrow from some educational stuff I've done recently, everyone's okay in the situation. And once everyone's okay, it sets the stage to kind of proceed into exercise on the most positive foot possible.
Love that, man. Thank you so much. I love it. And Ahmed, I'm just kind of wondering, when I'm thinking about you, because I mean, you're a seasoned trainer, but I'd say you're a little younger than we are, by a hair. I don't want to do that to you because we're all old men here. But I'm just wondering, as you're like exploring and developing your business compared to us old men, how are you figuring out the chameleon balance of providing your fitness experience? And what are you thinking about?
Yeah, so similarly to what Sam Trotta was saying in terms of the chameleoning side of things and matching the way that they're communicating, I think for me, I think a lot about building the relationship as much as possible in the session. And I think that's because, in terms of giving people the fitness experience that they're looking for, the reason why we want to do that as professionals is to give them what they're there for, and at the same time to allow them to stay longer with us so that we can help them for as long as possible, and so that our business can be healthy, right? And so for me, I know that sometimes, I typically take notes whenever I have a session, and I added something to my notes that's basically just called a relationship-based question, right? So I'll ask them things specifically like, hey, Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks, right? Or I'll ask them things like, hey, what's your favorite vegetable, right? Certain things, like I try to sprinkle in these types of questions from session to session, just a piece of
Oh man, I'm so sorry. Last thing you said was you're asking about the favorite vegetable, and then you started cutting in and out. So I'll tell you what, we're gonna shift gears for a second. I'll come back to you in just a second because it looks like we lost Ahmed. Oh no, poor guy. So we'll come back to him. But on that note, Mr. Davis, I'm just kind of wondering, when you're thinking about the fitness experience and how you provide that professional experience people want to come back for, besides what Sam and Ahmed were talking about, how do you think about it?
Yeah. So I definitely like what both you guys said. I have really been paying attention to the words that I use, right? The words I use in the session for the response I get. And, you know, I do remain authentically myself, but I definitely try to mirror and model to my clients. And, you know, from when I start assessing, I'm taking psychological notes, you know, on different varying factors. I'm saying, like, what kind of energy they have, what they're telling me, does it match their body language? And then from there, just getting to know them a little deeper. Like, what are they getting really? Like, what do they feel like? What are they telling me? And then from there, just, you know, coming up with a strategy that can match that. And I took some notes, and just like thing I have thought a lot about, and this has always pertained to me as well, but, you know, it's like educating my clients that exercise is a tool to greater success, building a better body that is functional and for you to empower your life. I think it is the key to, you know, and becoming a better human being, the whole human. You know, so if we can look at exercise not as a chore, but as a tool to step into themselves, before that, you know, that's physical, that's emotional, that's psychological. And I think that for me has really provided a lot of value. You know, and it becomes therapeutic at that point. No matter how they're feeling, I assess like, hey, let's just see on a physiological level, what are you coming in with today? And if they're like, dude, I'm a 5. Okay, let's figure out why. And then, we can talk about things during the session, but I'm guiding it towards the educational piece. You see what we're doing here is this, and then seeing how they feel. And then when they leave, even if they're a 7, it's like, dude, that's a great improvement. What if we could do that every time I see you? And so for me, I think that's really what it's about.
I love that. I mean, that's so powerful. So you're saying that you'll ask them and kind of ask like on the, good to not good continuum emotionally, how they're doing that day. And they'll say, I'm a 5. And if they leave and they're a little better, you kind of bring that up as a metric for them.
Well, I just think it creates, more rapport. So therefore, if I am checking in with them, it's like, dude, I'm doing my homework because I've realized I too can feel better on my own. And then everything that I do when I see them, it just gets better. You're greasing the wheels. And so we're not having to restart. And so I think it puts more responsibility on the person. I'm here to help you, but if you want me to fix things, like you have to participate.
100%.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you one question because you said that, when someone comes in, you start off by making a lot of notes like many of us do, but you say you make psychological assessments, which is kind of where they are. Not assessments, because I know that's not your scope and I'm not doing that to you, but I'm kind of wondering like what kind of things are you looking for? Like, or besides what they say, are you looking at their body language and whatnot? Like, what kind of things do you watch for and how do you bring it up?
Well, I'm thinking like, what is my first line defense to get into their system, right? Like, how can I help this person become adaptable? And for different people, I think that's different. Like some people, maybe let's go to the table first. I mean, obviously I'm assessing on the table, but it might be taking them through something where I can show them what I feel for or cue them a certain thing. So how do they feel versus this? And then I get to understand, one, their thinking, how they learn. But really, I think it's for me trying to create value and have an impact that they can feel to show them that when you come to space, I'm in business, and we're going to get after it.
I love it. That's incredible, man. And that's a smart thing to do. I think anyone that's listening to this, I think kind of taking toll of, being aware of both, like where that individual is that day. How are you collecting information on them to show them, A/B comparison from beginning to end of session, and then also giving them make a experience that makes them feel really good. Mr. Mindful Motion LA, I mean, if you are truly delivering mindful motion, you must be mindful of how you're delivering that motion. Could you speak to how you think about the fitness experience and what stands out to you? And that's different from everybody else.
Yeah, you just kind of set it up there for me perfectly. I won't belabor all the things that everyone else has said. I totally am on the same page and agree. Communication skills, mirror imaging people's body language, kind of matching their voice tonality, all that stuff's really valuable. The psychological components are critical, and the trying to kind of guide people into how to make the experience of exercise richer. In a lot of ways, that's kind of getting the sense of where their mind's at and how they view exercise. And maybe some people, vast majority of people, have a negative connotation or association with exercise. And if there is that, I need to know that, and I need to figure that out. So I try to figure these things out as soon as I can. And once I kind of get a sense of where they're at, that helps me understand how I'm going to approach the exercise and how aggressive I might be or how less aggressive I might be. But ultimately, if I want them to enjoy it, and if they don't enjoy it, I need to know that so that I can change it in the way that makes it an enjoyable thing. Otherwise, they might not stay around. And if they don't stay around, they won't get where they want to go and won't sustain it. So ultimately, it's the time part. Dr. Taylor is a big piece of me understanding things about that very well. And it's just connecting the mind piece to the exercise. So we're paying attention to what we're doing, making sure that we're getting what we want and that they like the process.
Yeah, so I mean, on that, that's super important. I want to ask on that, you said like you want to figure out if they don't like the exercise experience to some degree. And I'm just wondering, could you think of a more extreme example of a client that came in and they kind of indicated they didn't like exercise at all, and you were able to customize your delivery in a way that kind of brought them around?
Yeah, so I have a client who is pretty close to obese, if not she is, and has kidney failure, and I've been working with her for many years. And I used her as an example because I spent a lot of time pain funneling and basically asking questions to figure out if there is some way that she could enjoy movement. And I use her just as an example because I was not very successful in being able to for her to enjoy it. But she still comes back because she knows it's important. So I'm outlining that just to say that it's not always possible. Sometimes people are just not going to get there. That's okay. Just do the best you can. But I think the way to figure it out is to just get in the weeds of figuring out who they are, try to find out what they like, what are their hobbies, what are the things that they enjoy, and then can you kind of connect that to the exercise experience? So maybe a book nerd like she is, she loves books. Maybe you should figure out a book that she likes, a storyline that she likes, a favorite character, and then maybe you can tie characteristics of that character into being a hero or something like that, and then bring it into the exercise experience and make her the hero of her journey and try to get her motivated that way. Cool. It's challenging, but that's some type of things that I would do help like bridge the gap.
It's almost like you're a fitness pro or something like that.
I try, man. Thanks for the help.
That's awesome. So, I mean, I love all this, guys, and thanks so much for sharing your wisdom on this. And this kind of like brings to like, you know, if we're looking at the opposite end of this continuum, you know, I think this is going to be kind of a little funny. I hope it is. I don't want to turn into a bash session, but I'm just wondering, when you think of the personal training experience, what is the biggest pet peeve you have that you've seen other trainers when they're providing experience, whether outside of your gym, in your gym, people that you know, or maybe even something that you've done yourself? Mr. Davis, what's something that just grinds your gears?
Oh man. Well, if it's pertaining to my client specifically and I'm with them, you know, it's people expecting me to do all the work.
Yeah.
You know, I think if you show up and you're like, hey, like I'm just busy, you know, I didn't do any of my homework, I didn't do any of this stuff, like, you know, I can't tell you, I'm just here to lay down and, you know, I'll go through whatever you do, and when you me, you know, I can feel it, but then I'm going to leave and not do anything. I think for me, it gets a little frustrating because I'm passionate and we do this for a reason, you know, and if we've all put much time into this, which clearly we like helping people and, you know, being better versions and being past, it shows maybe a lack of respect, a lack of, you know, I don't even, what's the word, but just consideration for all that effort. You know, so I think that's something I've gotten very clear with my clients about. And then if it's all my years working at other gyms, it would be like the showboaty trainers who aren't really paying attention, who are just texting on their phone and just, you know, there's no focus on execution or the why behind why somebody's doing it. It's like, hey, because I can do this movement and I'm jacked, so should Susie, who's 55, or whoever it is. I think, you know, there's a lot of people who don't put, I think, any real work ethic into understanding movement, understanding the why. Like, what are we doing this for? If you're just going through the motions, and you know, I don't know, that's a different question. But that's one of the things I would like. It would grind my damn gears. Like, dude, what is this guy doing? He's gonna get somebody hurt, and he doesn't give a shit.
Showboaty trainers, and they're just doing crazy things, and they're wearing tight pants and flexing their biceps, looking in the mirror, right? Those guys. Well, when I think of those guys, I think of Ahmed because he's so good looking and muscular. Well, let's take away the joking side. But Ahmed, I'm just joking. When you think of, I know you got some connection issues, so I appreciate you kind of riding this out. So if we lose you, we'll jump, but you keep going. When you think of other trainers and people you know, or maybe even things that you've accidentally done, what are kind of like some professional pet peeves you've seen of other fitness pros that we can kind of learn from?
Yeah, so first of all, I want to apologize for all this craziness as I am driving. But professional pet peeves, I think, has to be a lack of openness and a lack of honesty, right? Because I think it you know, when we're working with people's bodies, like we're also working with their brains, obviously, right? Like you can't, they're both so intimately connected, and so I think sometimes if we're trying to get information, you know, it's up to us as professionals to make them feel comfortable enough and to trust us enough where they can be open and honest. But I think sometimes if you know, if it's sort of like a relationship, right, where one person is putting in a whole lot of effort and then the other person isn't putting in as much effort in terms of trying to make sure that this is working, right? I think that's really the challenge. How can you have them feel safe and trust you enough so that they can be open about their experience, so that you can make it better for them and closely and more closely aligned to what it is that they need.
I love that, man. Deep and well thought. I'm just wondering, Trotta, you've been someone who's educating trainers for a while. Mr. Davis and Ahmed have put down some pretty awesome stuff. What's a pet peeve that grinds your gears?
I don't know if this is an answer to your question, but I'll ask forgiveness rather than permission. I've had a big shift with this whole thing in the last little while, with, you know, pet peeves with the industry and you know, what other trainers do. And the shift is this: I just don't pay it any mind anymore. And the reason is it does nothing for me and it does nothing for my clients. It's kind of like the idea of, you know, you don't fight bad speech or offensive speech with shouting back equally bad and equally offensive speech at the offensive person. You just fight bad speech with better speech. So there's badness going on in the exercise industry. We all know it. And when I say badness, I mean things that result in people getting injured, not getting the help they want, focus on you know, the professional making themselves the center of attention versus the client or the audience of clients in front of them the center of attention, which is, I don't know how that's even possible with, you know, 20, 30 people in front of you. But anyway, something that happens. I'm just doing my best to, in my own exercise practice, you know, sharpen my skill set as much as possible, to provide as positive and as productive and progressive of an exercise experience as I can. I'm trying to lead and coach the trainers that work with me into doing the same thing. And, you know, I can acknowledge that there's badness out there, but I just came to the conclusion I could be wrong. Like, I'm fully happy to be wrong about this, but just in my experience so far, it pays me nothing, literally or figuratively, to pay any attention to it. You know, through referral, through proper communication, and through other forms of attraction of new clients to my facility, one happy client, one satisfied client, one pain-free client at a time, I can just keep making a positive difference without getting bogged down by, you know, some of the BS we see out there. So again, I don't know if that answers your question, but there it is.
Well, it doesn't answer my question, but I appreciate it anyway. But I'll tell you what, I'll flip back on you, though, is if you saw some of that BS in the industry and you could look at that and go, I don't want that in my gym, just for the sake of playing my game, what would you pick? But I like your mindfulness.
Just for this, I think the number one thing would be the idea of the alleged professional making themselves the center of attention. You know, everybody does my workout. It's all the same for everyone. You know, shut up and give me 20 more because that's what you're going to do for me, because that's what I'm asking for. You know, inconsiderate or action that only considers the egoistic needs and wants of the person being paid rather than the person paying for the alleged service. I think that would be probably my number one thing. And it's something that openly I've had at Striation 6 pre-pandemic. We had a little bit of that. And, you know, if there has been a great reset for me, it's been that there's none of that anymore. I will not tolerate it. And I will not host programs that facilitate it. So hopefully that answers that question at least.
That was perfect. Yeah, nailed it, man. Thank you so much. And I don't want to derail your mindfulness, because I mean, honestly, I think the way that you regarded this initially is actually probably is the healthiest way to do it. I think that many of us here are very fortunate enough to be in environments where we don't have to necessarily think about truth is how the fitness industry actually is. So thanks for playing my game. I appreciate it.
Well, just if I could add one more thing onto that, I think a lot of us who have taken the time to, you know, educate ourselves and moreover take an approach that sort of counters the BS that we see in the industry, we might get insecure because we say, well, that BS can sell. It sells sometimes. It makes money. And, you know, we all have families to feed, bills to pay, all that sort of stuff. So I think that's the temptation to sort of focus on that stuff. I'll stop calling it BS, but to focus kind of on that stuff and counter it. And I just, again, think the more we focus on the communication of the possibility and attraction of new people to these great experiences that we can provide, that's how we can fight the BS in the industry the best.
I'm so happy you just said that. You just reminded me of a question that I wanted to ask. I want to ask all you guys after I ask Erick. I think would be kind of deep and philosophical. It's be kind of fun. Thanks, Sam. I love that question. I'm going to come back to you in a second here. But hey, mindful guy. Just wondering. just wondering.
One guy's got a great facility name.
I know. So mindful. I mean, if the problem is, I just realized your business name kind of like shoots everything I said in the foot, because you could literally be like, "Well, I'm just mindful," and you kind of like blanket every answer.
It's perfect.
How do you think biggest pet peeve?
Yeah. So, well, as a whole, I guess with trainers first, and then my personal, everything you guys say, I'm on board with too. It's like a constant theme here. But I would say there's in the fitness industry, and it's not exclusive to the fitness industry. It's kind of any industry really, is getting bogged down in dogma and ideology and being so set that your way and the thing you're doing is the thing. And I've fallen to this problem myself when I first started learning some of these cool techniques, MAT, RTS. It was just my world, and I was so closed off to other possibilities, thinking that other stuff was just dumb. And I've gotten away from that because, everything has merits and has things you can take from it, and to just say it's disregarded is almost doing yourself a disservice. So keeping your mind more open is a very powerful and useful thing, and it's something that can be challenging, but very, very cool. And then from a personal side, in my training sessions, if I'm with a client and they want to talk about personal matters while we're doing the exercise, that is not something I'm cool with, mainly because, it takes away from their ability to make changes that they want to see. So I do try to direct their attention back to the exercise, and if that doesn't work, I have a conversation of like, hey, when we're lifting, I need you to pay attention and be present. In between sets, in between exercises, okay, if you want to talk, we can do that, but not during the exercise, because you're missing all the important information that I need to hear from you and that you need to feel and understand. So that bothers me for sure.
Yeah, so you're kind of bringing something up. Thanks, man. These are great, and this kind of comes back to what Sam said. And you said something that kind of springboards this, and you mentioned the dogma thing. And it's funny because, when I first started studying a lot of the stuff that we've studied, I was challenging the dogma, but then I ended up having my own new dogma that I was using to challenge the old dogma, and I got stuck in, like new boxes, and I was like, well, I'm just in another box now. I just am more mindful within this box right here. Nice. So it's just like one of those things. I'm going to say something that'll sound like I'm trying to be funny, but I'm not. Kate and I were watching the TLC, the Learning Channel in Canada, which is far from the actual Learning Channel. And they were doing this thing where they were talking about Mountain Dew mouth. Have you guys heard of this? Mountain Dew mouth? Bear with me for a second. This is nothing fitness related, but it's a couple towns in the south that have so little money and so little education available to them that they literally can only afford soda drinks more so than they can afford actual bottled water and clean water. So all these people in the town drink more soda and don't know any different and really don't have the education to learn better. And they all got really bad teeth because of what the dentists call Mountain Dew mouth. And now this is like, of course, sidestep, disgusting, sad. You guys look it up. We're not going to talk about that. But what got me thinking was that in fitness and trainer land, the availability to education is much more readily available with the adjunct of the internet becoming more available. But there are people that don't have exposure to even know what to look at to challenge themselves and grow. And the reason why I'm going to leave this as an open question, because it wasn't my plan. If a trainer has a level of education and the delivery of their exercises that they're providing is actually causing harm, but they're only following the rules that they were given from the certification and the education they have right now, is that unethical?
Can I jump in here?
Yeah.
All right. So I know I went through this, and it wouldn't surprise me if all of us on this call went through this. Yeah, I was that guy. at one point, not injuring people left, right, and center, but doing protocol based things that were supposed to be useful and helpful for the clients I was in front of, and they just weren't, or they were causing little aches and pains. And I was, no, do this, keep doing it more. And yes, it was what the industry was telling me to do. At a certain point, you got to pull up your big boy, your big girl, your big whatever pants and say, look, this isn't working. I either need to get the F out of here because the stuff they're telling me doesn't work, or it doesn't work the way they say it works, or I have to look deeper and see if I can figure out a way to reconcile what's going on here. Am I doing it wrong? Is there better information available? We're adults. We have to take responsibility for ourselves. So at a certain point, maybe these people are just doing what the industry is telling them to do. But there's a certain line where it's like, okay, you've been doing this and injuring people for so long, figure it out. It's unethical at this point. So it's sort of on a continuum in that sense.
Sorry to interrupt right there. I think
you
have to get good at asking better questions, right? Like if this is mainstream and I'm being told this is the way, and I'm still seeing that the results aren't quite there, well, then I have to look at whether it's my execution. Is it potentially that I'm missing something? Is there somebody that I can ask to get a different view of this? I'm working with you guys. I'm like, hey, dude, I think I know all this stuff, but like for some reason I can't get to this next level of results. So people are like breaking. I don't know what to do. I might ask for your opinion. That's taking your ego out of the equation, like as it's all me, and realizing there's always room to improve. And so I have to be skeptical of even like you said, Brandon. The more that I learn, the more I question. And so when I first started going through MAT and RTS and stuff, I was like, I don't even know what to do. I was like, dude, I had this routine that was so easy to go through. Like, what? And so I was more confused than anything. And it just took me taking the time to like, all right, we can figure this out. And then what feels good, what doesn't, what modes and modalities really mean. And it's all like in a spectrum of like, what are the environmental constraints and the equipment I have access to? And, what is my goal at the moment and range of motion and how do I load? And you know what I mean? I think for me, that's where it all comes from, because everybody, I think at some point is getting injured or dealing with some sort of plateau. It's like, is this a stimulus thing? Is it the fact, why can't I overload this? What is going on? And then I think from there, you just get good at asking better questions and building upon like previously acquired skills.
Did I chime in?
Yeah.
Yeah. So your question was about whether it was unethical. I think if you're not aware what you're doing is causing harm initially, then I wouldn't say that's unethical. But if you keep doing what you're doing and you're not investigating whether it's leading to what you want it to be, whether it's causing harm or not, it's not taking them down the path they're trying to go, and you're not being attentive to that, and you keep doing it, then it starts to lead into unethical, But initially, I wouldn't say that it's unethical, even if it is the wrong thing, because you won't know until you do it and then you check the results.
Yeah.
Playing the game, then it becomes an unethical.
Yeah, everyone needs a little latitude. If the industry, what's being taught popularly in the industry is leading you down a dangerous path or a negative path in terms of how it manifests with your clients, or at least with some of them, everybody needs a little bit of latitude for discovery of that.
Yeah. And it's funny because I always think, and I think about this when I'm hiring a trainer, and I think about this when I meet new trainers, is how do you make that period smaller? Right? Because there's a point and I know that when I hire a brand new trainer and I give them a client and I say, okay, you're going to go sell this guy. I know that it's probably not going to go great the first time, right? That I'm probably going to lose a few clients in the process. But there's a small part of me that kind of because the person doesn't know how to sell, communicate, they might be too much, too little. They might do something that's a little bit, doesn't meet their experience. And I always have a hard time with that, not because I'm worried about the sale, but because I'm wondering about the individual. And I'm wondering if something could have gone different. Could they have gotten more from it? And it's hard not for me, even now, to think back to clients I had 17 years ago. And I'm like, John Giordano, man, if I just shut up and I did what you wanted, you'd be, and I think there's another lady named Colleen, and I think about them all the time, So how do you make that window smaller, I wonder?
It's funny you say that because I had a recent client who came in lots of orthopedic issues and hadn't been training for a while. New client, worked for a few sessions. I did the thorough assessment and explained things as to why we go about it this way to prevent potential problems for what she was experiencing. And even then, she still left, and I asked why, and I wanted to just get feedback, and so I could, make the next attempt a little better with someone new. And she just said I didn't want to go through. I wanted to work out harder initially. Like she wanted to be challenged, even though she wasn't ready for that. And so sometimes you have to, ethical standpoint, if we're still in that light, is like you have to be the professional, and you can't necessarily put someone in harm's way, even though they were asking for it.
Yeah, when I stopped working at Persicini's and I was getting into more assessments and stuff, I was actually managing a physiotherapy clinic up here, and the physical therapist in the chiro showed me some stuff, and I started doing more girth measurements and thinking about posture a little differently. This was before I was introduced to the stuff that Mac was doing, and it was really cool. And I remember I had one lady come in. She was a 70-year-old woman. She's like, I want to start exercising. I'm worried about my health. I want to do stuff. I said, no problem. I'm sorry. I'm going to do this assessment with you. I just got to get this information. And I started doing some stuff with her. And she's like, oh, by the way, my calf's been a little sore lately, but it's fine. I'm sure it's nothing. Well, I go to put the measuring tape around her calf, and her one calf is 3 inches larger than the other. She's a petite woman. I'm like, what is going on? So I said, can I just see your leg for a second? I went to check for edema, and she pulls it up, and she's got this gigantic red spot that is burning, like moisture's coming out of it. And it looked like Mars. And I was like, what's going on here? She goes, I don't know. I know what that is. I said, I'm sorry. If you don't know what this is, you need to go to the hospital or your doctor right now. Well, her son called me 4 hours later. Turns out it was a blood clot.
Oh, man.
And I will never forget it. She never came back because she was scared just because of, I don't know. But it was bad. It was hot. It was sweaty. It was huge. And if I'd ignored that and I just went on the gym floor and did some squats and she did some stuff that mobilized that thing.
Yeah.
And I think about that every time I do an assessment and someone says they don't want to do it. And I'm like, I totally get it. I'm sorry. Scary stuff. Anyway, another question. So on a slightly more positive note, I think there's a really interesting juggle that we have as professionals. We have the juggle of, as we work with clients for a long time, if you listen to the Michelle Amore episode, she talks about that, much like family, when you're with a client for 3, 5, 10 years, there's a relationship you built that is kind of beyond personal friends. Like there's a rapport that you have that is just deeper, and it's hard to describe. You're not family, you're not friends, but you're well trusted in the family world, but not the same. Like it's a weird niche relationship. And we have this juggle that we have to divide and battle between professional experience, what we do, and rapport. I like to call it the rapport continuum. But I'm just wondering, Brandon, you're so mindful. Damn it, Eric. Brandon, you're so mindful. I'm just wondering how you juggle the professional personal relationship with the rapport.
I've had to get better at that, really. I feel like I would just form these super cool friendships with clients and like, yeah, man, we can talk about whatever you want during the session. Kind of like Eric said, I wasn't necessarily focused. There were certain points of exercise where I'm like, we're going to focus on executing, but I'm telling jokes and we're laughing and we're having a good time. And I'm thinking that's like, dude, these people are having a great time. I'm essentially the entertainer, but what came with that was people would start, crossing boundaries. We're buddies. I don't need to show up for the session. Or, last second, like I can move it. Hey man, sorry, something came up. Can we do this tomorrow at this time? Where you're like, I actually have a business here.
Yeah.
So I think really, meeting expectations up front, letting people know, hey, I obviously want to have a great time. I want you to enjoy seeing me. Like I have a, positive outlook on life, but we're here for a reason. And so I think in multiple ways, it's better if I gear this towards the experience. I'm going to educate you on what we're doing and why. And there are going to be times where I may change the subject on the point and focus on what we're doing. Okay, what did you feel there? Because I'm also trying to take in more data and I'm trying to really give you the best experience. And I'm trying to learn and grow and, make this thing and myself as well be the best that I can be. And so I feel since I have been doing that, really this year, it's been a different experience. People show up on time. People are more respectful. I'm not stressed. Like why would they, Why would they send me a text at midnight, like a 3-page text about something that doesn't have to do with exercise? You know, that type of stuff. So,
Yeah.
man, it just takes time to navigate it, but definitely, yeah.
I think it's a journey. I mean, I tell you, I was definitely robotic with a lot of my clients for a long time and didn't let anybody in because I wanted that separation, because like the rules of friendship versus rules of professional are very different. And what I had 10 years ago, I remember several people that were friends of mine that became clients, and they did the last minute cancellation thing. I said, yeah, no problem, man. I just got charged for the time. And he's like, what? And it turned into a problem. And the one guy, his name's Jeff. We're not friends now. And I tried to explain to him, I wasn't trying to be a jerk. It was just like, this is how I make my living. And I appreciate if you can't come, but this is my time and it's your time. And we're not honoring it equally. So anyway, Mr. Trotta, how do you juggle? I mean, you're someone who's been doing this longer than me, I think, or close to the same amount of time. Got to be close. You got clients for a long time. How do you juggle the professional stuff versus the rapport stuff?
It's a tricky mix. It's definitely a tricky mix. Something that I had to work on I started really focusing in on this, I'd say 10, 11 years ago. So still well into my exercise professional career, and having done some of these, more advanced courses that we've all done, became more mindful of this, and not just with my clients, but really in all my relationships. I tend to be overly empathic. So I think being an empathetic person can be an asset, but when it's overdone, like on a scale of 1 to 10, if you're riding a 6 or 7, it could be a good thing, depending on, combination of it. But if you're putting the pedal to the metal and you're a level 10 empath, now the client, rather than the client being in your system or in my system, I'm in theirs. So if they come in and they're talk, I just would jump in with that. And what I had to do was find ways that, could non-confrontationally put up boundaries about how personal I was willing to get. I have some clients that I've seen since like 2005, 2008. So some really long-term people. Some of it depends on the individual. I have a guy that I've been seeing since 2008, and he never gets too personal. Like he's pretty focused. He knows he's a well-known, very successful business guy. When he comes to the gym, he's here to work, but we've known each other for 14 years. There's a bit of personal that goes along with that. There's nothing wrong with that. One technique that I use to not deter when things get too personal, but to sort of ensure that things don't get too personal in advance, is once every couple of sessions, I go a little technical on people. So they'll say, like, the opportunities will come up, like, why did this feel this way? And I'll actually do a mini technical breakdown and use a little bit of, anatomy jargon and that kind of thing. And that's kind of a wall in a sense, or not a wall, but a screen, let's say, where it says, I'm a professional. We're here for exercise. This thought process is going on, even though the conversation's casual. It lets them know that behind the scenes in my brain, there are things going on that I'm not necessarily letting them know. So they're not here for a chat. They're here to exercise. And I think mixing that for me at least, mixing that kind of thing in with let's say, variable and helpful level of personal conversation during the time that we're together has been a great way to establish myself as someone who's a friendly face, a friendly person, but who ultimately is, engage in a professional relationship with each client.
I think you need that baseline foundation in there. Like, even if it's once a session, once every couple sessions, just to remind them of that additional value that they don't hear every single session, for sure. I love that, Sam. Thank you. Mindful Motion LA. Besides being mindful, how do you juggle? I'm sorry, your name is literally like, I'm mindful.
Guy's getting harassed for his name.
No, it's actually the opposite. It's the opposite. I think of it. You could, Erick, you could literally be like, well, I'm mindful. You know what? That actually answers that question. That's great. How do you juggle the professional balance between long relationships and rapport?
Yeah, reiterating what Sam said, I'm always coming off sympathetic, empathetic, and caring about their situation. people's lives go through lots of different ups and downs, right? So I'm not ignoring the personal side of things, but I'm always keeping my role in check and staying in the trainer role, professional role. I'm friendly, but I'm never friends with my clients. I think I've done something outside of a professional interaction once with one client. So I don't really intermix it. I'm, personable. I know about their life. I try to keep it about their life, not as much mine, but it bleeds in a little bit here and there. But in the sessions, we're not chatting about personal stuff really. And if we are, it's always centered around how exercise might interconnect with that. So maybe there's personal things that you're dealing with and it's physically related, then we'll talk about it and how exercise can be related to that and how we can enhance it with exercise. But it's always centered in the professional relationship. I'm not trying to interconnect them too much. I think I heard a long time ago when I went through RTS, Tom made a very firm statement about that kind of thing, and I took it to heart because I didn't want it to become a muddled relationship, and I wanted to make sure my professional relationship stayed intact. And what Sam was saying is like staying on task, staying in the details and the technical stuff is very helpful to keep things engaging, but also, in the right vein within what we do.
Love it, man. Thank you, Eric. And then Ahmed, and then I got one last question for everybody, and then we'll kind of put a pin in it. This has been a fun battle. I like this. Ahmed, when you think about your relationships with your clients, how do you juggle friendship and professional stuff?
Yeah, so in classic FPM personal trainer vein, I think it depends, right? Like, so I have clients who maybe I was closer with before we became in a professional relationship, right? And so those people I definitely treat a bit differently than the people who basically we started off saying, hey, this is the professional relationship we're going to be in, versus having that history, so to speak. So it depends on the client, but I think what I like to do as much as possible is to avoid giving a lot of my own personal stuff, right? Because I don't think anybody should care about that stuff because what they're there for is not me, but the service that I provide them. And so I think you just need to be mindful of making sure that people feel heard, right? Make sure that you're listening, and that within itself is like a level of service that already differentiates you from other personal trainers. So like if you're just simply listening, maybe acknowledging what they're saying, and then redirecting it to some of the stuff like that Sam was saying and Eric was saying, to that technical stuff, it's very helpful. But there are clients who are like super emotional, right? And then with those clients, it's tough sometimes because you're trying to have the session, you're trying to think, you're trying to think on my end, I still have a lot to do in terms of thinking about technical specific stuff. But then at the same time, it's like, okay, this person's having a really personal, emotional experience right now. What can I do to make sure, one, that they're not offended, and two, that we can still get the work done here, right? And so I think to that first point, that they're not offended, I think that has to come from the inner work of yourself and realizing that you're not responsible for people's emotions. Rather, if anything, you can be there to help guide them through working on their own emotions. And then to the second point, it has to be clear that it's a professional relationship, and you need to set up the rules as much as possible on the front end in terms of that being the case. So that's how I think about it.
Love it, Ahmed. Very, very cool. So listen, everybody, we're getting close to 3:00 end here. I'm going to ask Sam because I know he's got to peel out, and then I'll ask everybody, and hopefully we can do this, get everybody in here. But if anyone has to go out before we finish this last question, anyone that's here, happy Thanksgiving to all of my U.S. friends. And Sam Trotta, screw you. But everybody else, I just kidding. What I want to do on this exact note, opposite of that really, is Sam, if you were to provide one piece of wisdom to a new trainer and or yourself years ago to help provide the most awesome fitness experience or anything else really relating to your career, what would you say to yourself?
I've thought about this a lot since you sent us the questions yesterday, and what I keep coming back to is question everything. I would tell the younger version of myself to question everything, not to the point of inaction or paranoia or you know, fight, flight, freeze. None of that. But you know, test things out, see how it goes, ask questions. How could I make this different? Is this suitable for this client? How could I alter something slightly so it is suitable for this client? Am I approaching this correctly? Did I miss something? These are such important questions, and they shouldn't be aimed at perfection. They should be aimed at progress. Meaning you're not looking to get it perfect. You're not looking to, as a young trainer, as a trainer of any age, you're not looking to get it perfect. You're looking at where you are as a base and how you can bring yourself forward by trying to discover new things about your approach, about the person you're approaching, and about the tools and the strategies with which you're approaching them.
Beautiful, dude. I 100% couldn't agree more. And just because I know you got to go in a minute, thank you so much for being here, dude. It was a blast having you.
Thank you all. Happy Thanksgiving, American peeps. Appreciate it.
Mr. Holtzman, what would be one piece of wisdom? What's that?
Not mindful guy anymore.
Mindful Holtzman. What would be the one thing, one piece of wisdom that you would share to a new trainer or a younger version of yourself?
Yeah,
Can't say a question everything.
Yeah. Well, that's my nature. So that was something I always did. You know, starting out, any trainer who's new, it's sensible to get really in the weeds with the technical things and develop your skill set. I mean, I'm glad I did that because from the exercise skill set, I mean, that stuff was vital for me being able to help people and grow my business and charge more money. But I didn't spend much time with the business side and developing those skills, communicational skills. And the last 2 years or so, and more so the last year and a half doing stuff with you has been a big eye-opening experience in the sense that there's a lot that I need to learn and get better at to be proficient as an entrepreneur. And regardless if you're at a big gym or you own your own gym, you're still an entrepreneur of some kind because you have your own business within another gym. So learning the skill set earlier on would have helped me be more organized and more proficient. But I'm learning them now, so that's at least in the workings, you know. But that's what I would have done differently.
Yeah, man. No, 100%. Love that. And just really quickly, Glenn Owen is here. Creep in the comments. He said approach learning with childlike curiosity, which is absolutely perfect for his energy. I love it. Ahmed, what would you say to a younger version of yourself or a new trainer about development?
You don't matter. The only thing that matters is the person you're serving. And you know, let go of your ego, and whatever it takes to serve people is what you need to do.
Love it, man. Conciseness over expansiveness. That's my vibe. Love it, dude.
There you go.
And get neuro fit, Mr. Davis. What would be one thing you would say?
I mean, I think just piggybacking on what they're saying, you know, I would tell myself or somebody starting out, you can, you know, if you're interested like me, you can learn a ton, and you can be, you know, you can feel like you're accomplishing a lot by learning. Like, oh, dude, I've got this certification, I'm learning this, wow. But unless you're taking massive action, it's the name of the game, right? It's I just feel like understanding the whole picture, learn how to run a business, get organized, put systems in place, like get better at speaking, you know, and then from there, just take action the entire time, you know. And I think one thing that has really helped me is the understanding my role versus identity, and how to detach myself as somebody who is passionate, who is an empath, and realizing like I'm here with a, you know, like Ahmed said, I'm here with the job to do, and I'm going to take myself out of the equation. This is the role I'm playing right now. And I mean, since then, I just feel like since I've been doing that, things are just flowing smoother. It's more effortless. Like I just, you know, I don't take anything personal. And it's just, it's a more enjoyable experience.
It does feel good.
Yeah.
Guys, this was a blast. I had so much fun having everybody here. Thank you so much for making time for this.
Yeah, thank you, Brendan.
This was great.
Does anyone here have anything they want to say before we put a pin in it?
This was fun. Thank you, Brandon, for all that you do and all your help. And yeah, I love being a part of this community.
Cool. Ahmed, thanks so much, man.
Much gratitude to all you guys. I feel like I'm learning from you all. And it's just cool to see us all on the path doing our thing.
Yeah, man. I love it. Feel so mindful with you guys.
I do feel like I'm gonna have a very mindful day. I'm gonna check in, make sure.
Perfect. I love it. Glad I
Eric,
could.
your business is just named. You're just so perfect. That's what it is.
All right, guys.
All right, guys. Well,
That you would
happy
say?
Thanksgiving, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. And everyone who's listening to this, check it out. We'll talk to you real soon.
Bye, guys.